Welcome to another Content Social. I'm your host, Ryan Randall Bella. All right, so let's talk about the frequency, basically trying to time content in a way that it makes it more likely that this is a time when audience is going to buy product. Let's just get right into details and examples. Number one, the weekend, okay? The weekend is a time where consumers are both resting and purchasing, right? They get into a purchase mode where on the weekend, it's sort of the only time they have to ponder certain purchases. It might be the only time they actually have to sit down, particularly around web commerce, and like search for stuff and find stuff and get interested in stuff and then buy stuff. And I think folks have to generally kind of understand about people, consumers particularly, is that they sort of function, at least in the economy, to buy stuff, right? That's one of the things they do. They go to work, they earn their money to pay their mortgages. Typically, those are folks that have families and get mortgages, and they take that route. And then within the course of the weekend, they're spending a lot of time spending money on e-commerce, right? So the weekend is a good part. It's a good time to catch them. And so the strategy really has to be from the perspective of somebody who's using the vector of pitching through content, using the vector of content to pitch product to folks. Is to understand, like, it has to be a sense of urgency. Okay, it's Saturday morning, and Saturday morning typically is like a morning where folks are going to want to go out and maybe go to a wine tasting like at 11 to 1 p.m. They're going to sleep in a little bit, but like at 11 to 12 to 1 p.m. they're going to want to go and do some stuff. So you have to either catch them before they go and do that stuff. And one of the ways you can do that is put out some content that notifies people that you put the content out. Like you put a YouTube channel, all your subscribers will know you put a video out. YouTube will actually email them. If you're, email list, if you put a video out on some other medium or a podcast that maybe won't notify them, iTunes podcasts do notify folks that are subscribed to the podcast. But if there's some way where folks don't get notified, then you could send out an email. Sorry, my beard is like ultra itching my nose right now. You could send them out an email blast. Just basically an email, just a regular email to your list. If you've built an email list and say, hey, look, we just launched a piece of content. Here's the link. Check out the piece of content. And so that you can catch them before they go and do their thing on a Saturday. Sundays are basically the same thing as Saturday, except for folks who really aren't going out and doing a whole lot, right, for the most part. The consumers that you want to target really are, generally speaking, at home. And so I mean, it's imperative that you probably get the content, the video out early on a Sunday. And by early, I mean somewhere between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. to noon, at the very latest 2 p.m. Because folks will still be in a buying mode at 2 p.m. to want to purchase products over the web. And if you're pitching that product, directly through some sort of content, a content medium, then they're more than likely to do it. It's really when you get into the later hours that folks are still going to be a little likely to do it, but they shift into a mode of prepping for the next day's stuff again, right? They shift into a mode of prepping for the next day's work. They've got to prep their daughter for school tomorrow. They've got to prep their clothes for their job tomorrow, right? They've got to think about some of they've got to take, Ernie, the freaking dog, to the vet this week, right? So they're sort of prepping for that, and they're in that mode, and they sort of get out of the mode of making web purchases kind of after 6 p.m., right? In that time frame, that's when they're not really into purchasing, and they may come back to that mode of purchasing once all of the things are done for that evening clip, where they've sort of set up their kid for school, they've set up their clothes for work, they've planned some stuff during the week, and they got everything done, and they're back on their phone. They're back on their phone, and they're searching around, and they're now. That window opens up again where you can sell them product, right? Where you can put out content, and within that content, you got yourself pitching a product. So that's really the deal with Saturdays and Sundays. But I think you have to think about that on a larger, broader scale too. It's just one of the factors, right? During the week, you've got to think about it during the week. Like Monday, Mondays, you have to understand consumers and consumers' behavior. It's almost like bears that hibernate together. They all do it together. It's all uniformed. But you've got to understand that as an entrepreneur trying to sell content trying to sell product through content. Mondays, they just had a weekend. They just spent probably a lot of money. More than likely they're mildly or somewhat hungover, right? A lot. I mean, that's like what middle class folks do. That's what the general contingent of the United States economy that purchases product, that plays a major role in keeping the economy functioning correctly. That's what they do. I mean, let's face it, they go out to restaurants, they drink alcohol. So you just have to know it's not a good thing or bad thing or whatever. I'm not trying to demean it. I'm just saying, like, this is what they do. That is the pattern. So you have to think, like, Monday, are they hungover? You know, what is the likelihood that they're going to buy a product as a result? How are they going to feel? And considering all those things, when's the best time to hit them? And I can say that, look, there are going to be people that aren't going to go to work or don't go to work. Maybe they're entrepreneurs or whatever. And at that time, you still got to sort of focus on putting content out and hitting people in that time too. So put something out in the morning, put something out by noon, put a piece of content out by 3 p.m. Okay, great. But Monday, if you really truly want to catch people, it's going to be a little difficult because they're really not in a spending mode, but you still should try anyway, because why not? You should still try. It's really in the evening on Mondays, because getting back into the psychology of it, now on Mondays in the evening, they've already went to work, they've gone to work, and they're sort of in a okay, we made it through the hump of Monday phase. And so now they're a little more relaxed. They made it through the hump of Monday. Tomorrow's Tuesday. It's still sort of early in the week. They're not really feeling it. They're not really into it. You know, Wednesday and Thursday are killer days for sales because they start to feel a lot better. So that's when you really, really blast out content, really blast out emails and stuff like this. But Monday night, you can still send out. You should still put out content, send out email letters to your email list, right? And try to capitalize on those phases. Tuesday is spotty. Tuesday is difficult, but either way, you should try to pitch and put content. Either way, you're going to put content, because aside from understanding patterns and how people might purchase product based on their pattern at the time on that day or something, you still have to think about the other dimension of this, which is that you're putting content out that's evergreen, meaning it's always on the web, and that'll be pitching for you. That someone might see that content and your pitch on a Friday, when they're ready, when they've just got their paycheck and they're ready to buy a product, or Sunday, you know, after 6 p.m. and they want to buy product, or Saturday early in the morning before they go out to the wine tasting to buy products. So you always have to sort of think about it in that regard. Wednesday and Thursday, these are killer days for e-commerce sales, okay? And the thinking behind it is people have made it through the hump, so they're feeling a lot better. They know the weekend's coming, and if they're getting paid every week, what's happening this Friday, and they know it, is they're getting paid, and they've analyzed their spend so far for the week, and they still have some money left over, right? People budget, you know, that's one of the things that the purchasing consumer middle class does, is they budget a lot. And so they're thinking about what their money is. Some of them obviously more responsibly than others, but it all really depends on the situation, right? And so you have to figure, like, okay, now they have figured out their budget. You know, they're going to have more money left over, some degree of money left over. Some won't, and you won't get those folks. They'll have to wait till Friday, which is why you got to stay consistent. In the meantime, pitch them on Friday too. Put out content on Friday as much as you can, and on Saturday and the weekends, because there's bleed over from that payday. But some folks, you know, have come to budget and know, like, okay, now we've got a little bit of money left over. Like, it's Friday's coming, we're getting paid again. And so as like a way of, like, kind of easing into the weekend, which is leisure and is filled with them doing things they want, right? They kind of get in a mode of purchasing again. So pitch them hard on Wednesday, pitch them hard on Thursday. And really, I would say, just try to pitch them in any hours of the day. Put out content any hours of the day on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday is a weird animal. Yes, people get paid. But the thing is, the trick that you have to keep in mind is you got to catch them after they get paid and before they go out and party, because that's what's happening on Friday nights, right? It's Friday night, right? So before they go out to the restaurant and before they go out to the amusement park, before they go out to their friend's house and have a pool party, like whatever the hell they're going to do on a Friday night, you've got to catch them before that, but after they get paid. So do they get direct deposit at 2 p.m. and then they get out of work at 3? You know what I mean? That's, I think, where you should really start. And some people don't have work on Fridays, so you should absolutely start in the morning. But work on trying to release content sort of staggeringly throughout the course of the day, perhaps, as an example, on a schedule of 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and then between 5 and 6. Between 5 and 6, you're catching people who are leaving work. They've already gotten paid. They cash their checks. Then they're going to go home. Catch them right then. Okay, so that they can, if they're going to purchase, because these things happen on impulse, okay, most of the time, right? You got to get them when they're interested, or you fucking lost them, and you might have lost them forever. In that time frame, you've got to catch their attention with an offer. pitch content, put content out, get the content in front of them, or get an email list in front of them, an email message in front of them, and get the offer in front of them, so that in that time period before they go out to the pool house or the pool party or the fucking whatever, you can get them to buy your product. Okay, so that's basically breaking it down by the day. It's important to consider when these. Look, people behave. The consumer middle class that functions in some part, at least as it relates to the economy, to put money into the economy by purchasing product. Your product as an entrepreneur. You've got to think about how they behave. You've got to really truly think about what they're doing and when they're doing it, and when you can put content out to be in front of them, and when you can catch them at the most likely time. And have an overarching sort of a background strategy of even though you want to hit them at certain times, either way you kind of constantly want to be pumping out content. You're just sort of thinking more strategically, maybe just more strategically position your offer to be a little more aggressive during the times that you've learned from this video, and you sort of think over time that they're going to be in that window where they're going to buy product. That's the point. That has been the major point. That helps us significantly on the famous case study for the content sales strategies, which I use to grow my company month over month in revenue, called Cortex Labs. It is a supplement, a consulting and an information products company, and we use all of these strategies with that company, and we are killing it. I've come to learn it, use it, enjoy it, understand it, be consistent with it, and thanks so much for watching.